I'm Rajesh from Applied Ventures, the corporate venture arm for Applied Materials. I have a group of very accomplished corporate venture capitalists with me. We'll try to keep the panel short, 3 to 4 questions, and hopefully get some audience engagement as well as we go along. May I ask my panelists to go down and then do a quick introduction, maybe 1 to 2 minutes at the most. Brendon?
Sure. Brendon Kim. I'm the managing director for Samsung Next Ventures. Samsung Next Ventures is essentially a venture capital arm for Samsung Electronics. Our mission is very simple. We just want to work with the very best founders and entrepreneurs in areas that Samsung cares about. And it happens to be that the areas that we care about are certainly AI, robotics, digital health, and then consumer internet and consumer services. And in consumer services, we are especially interested in media tech, which includes games, and then also blockchain services. I've been with Samsung for about 12 years, and then prior to that, I was with Altos Ventures, where I was a founding GP there for about 15. That just tells you I'm old. So, but glad to be here. I want to thank Ty and Raj and Andy for putting all of this together, so appreciate it.
Thanks, Brendon. Samantha? Sam?
Hi there, I'm Sam. I'm from BMW iVentures, where I'm a principal. So we are a $300 million fund that invests in Series A to C stage companies in auto, sustainability, manufacturing, supply chain, and a little bit of enterprise SaaS. I myself focus a lot on robotics, AI, and general SaaS, and interesting deep tech topics. I will pass to Abe.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Abe Yacobian. I help lead Mercedes' North America M&A and strategic partnerships team. It is a bit of a hybrid between corporate development and strategic partnerships. We focus very much, as Sam described, across the value chain, battery tech, electrification, infotainment, materials, next gen, and really kind of keeping an eye on the new emerging tech, particularly in the area. Mercedes continues to invest locally because of the dynamic environment here and what we see bubble up. Yeah, so excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Last but not least, Varsha.
Last but not least, I'm Varsha Tagare. I'm part of Qualcomm Ventures. Qualcomm Ventures invest in areas such as AI, enterprise, mobility, which includes some of the stuff that these panelists talked about, as well as robotics. So happy to be here. Thanks for hosting us, Andy.
Thanks, everybody. If I can take a minute to shamelessly plug Applied Ventures here as well. Applied Ventures is the corporate arm for Applied Materials. We invest in the semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem, all the way from the materials to the software on the end, and also in adjacent areas, including a lot of the areas that my other panelists look at, batteries, quantum computing, cybersecurity software, enterprise software, and things of that sort. We are a $100 million a year fund, stage agnostic and geography agnostic as well. We've invested in, as we like to call it, 19 countries in the world. Look forward to expanding that as well. All right, launching into the boring panel portion. I've told somebody that I want to be on a VC panel, but I ended up on a VC panel, so I'll try to make it as engaging as possible. And I'm going to cut off my speakers if their answers get boring. I'm going to try to see if we can do that. All right, maybe starting with the theme here is investing globally. The question here is, what is driving your funds to look at different geographies of investment? We don't have to go down for every speaker. If you feel passionately, speak up. If not, we'll find a different question to ask you. Who wants to take this question?
I'll start since I'm right next to you.
Sure.
Well, I think there's a strong belief at Samsung that innovation happens globally. So that's number one. I mean, we certainly have, I forget the number exactly, but it's something like over $10 billion that we spend in R&D at Samsung in Korea. But we know that outside those walls, tons of innovation is happening, especially with startup ecosystems around the world. So that's the primary reason why we're involved in, certainly not only just in the US, but also in Israel, Europe, and parts of Asia that we're investing in. But I think the other thing that I've come to realize is that by investing globally, you get to see different perspectives and different strengths and weaknesses in each of the geographies that we're investing in. As an example, we're all investors in AI, and I don't know if this is a trend or not, but certainly something that we've observed is that AI companies in Europe, for instance, come from a very different background than AI companies here in the US. Here in the US, we're used to big data, lots of data, lots of compute power, and that's what we focus on is we create, that's where LLMs came from. And Europe, they don't have that kind of background, that history, and that I guess the history of working with big data and lots of compute power. So when we looked at European companies, we find that they are the models there and the AI things that they're looking at are just much more efficient. So they're trying to figure out how to make great AI decisions that maybe take less data or can do faster training and do it with less compute power. And that's really of interest for us as Samsung because eventually what we want is really good AI on this device, right? Which means that you've got to be incredibly efficient. So that's been really fascinating to see. And then in Korea where we're investing, there's a history of great sort of expertise in large-scale hardware manufacturing. And so while Korea may not always be at the cutting edge of things in this particular area, in AI chips and thinking about how to manufacture at scale, I think that's been a real advantage. And so we've been looking at those kind of companies. So in short, innovation occurs everywhere, but every area of geography, I think, has different strengths and weaknesses. And we love entrepreneurs who lean into those strengths in those areas and bring new ideas to the fore.
Thank you, Brendon. It's interesting that you observe that there's a lot of regional specificity about how technology develops. That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, lots of different histories and from that, different perspectives.
Okay. Maybe one more response to this question.
Happy to chime in.
Varsha, can you just share how many countries is your fund invest in just a baseline?
We're in 7 countries around 7 countries around the world for almost the last 15 years or so. So some other countries that we didn't hear about include LATAM is an interesting country in Europe, Germany as well. So you will see a lot more IoT-related investments in parts of Europe, including drones, etc. We saw very, very interesting mobility investments in LATAM that have grown very nicely. In India, we have done drones. We thought drones are only here, but drones turned out to be a regional phenomena. And so we have seen a lot of those come out of India as well. So each country offers something unique as to where they start in the evolution. And so we meet the country where the country is at, rather than a global investment strategy. That's been the focus for the fund. And so people on the ground develop the investment strategy for that region, and we execute it accordingly.
And do either of your funds have an earmarked amount for deploying so much capital in certain geographies, or is it pretty free flow?
We have funds, however, we don't make it a artificial outline. Okay. We go with what's required as an outflow in each country.
It's similar here. We have one fund that's investing globally, and it doesn't matter where the idea comes from or what the funding needs are. It's just there's no particular allocation.
Cool. Sam, Abe, do you want to take this, or do you want to wait for the next?
Just real quick, we don't particularly have earmarks for particular geographies. We go to where the market is. We try to meet the market.
Okay.
Same with us. We do European and US and Canada, no specific earmarks, but big proportion of it is just United States by de facto.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the next question here. Maybe let's go back to some stories that are more relatable to the audience. Question here is, can you share any interesting or challenging examples of executing investments outside of the US? Can we start with you, Sam, or Abe?
Yeah, I'll share a funny one. So we invest in Germany sometimes. We're BMW, right? So to get the legal financing docs done, in the United States, what you got to do is you just got to sign it, and everyone's in agreement. In Germany, though, if you want to get a legal doc signed off, you have to go to a notary, and you have to sit there for 4 or 5 hours as the notary literally reads the financing document to you. And so you're just sitting there and waiting until you can sign it. I think that's symptomatic of just kind of like German legal processes, but I just thought that was just exemplary of kind of, the international differences of legal financings, but then also, gosh, I'm glad that we are in in the United States where I can just sign stuff and not have to sit there for 4 hours and wait until things are
Or
spoken
do the
out.
wetting, the famous wetting signatures, apostille in notaries.
Yeah.
We've been through that too. Abe?
Similarly, I think globally, in terms of technology, the acceleration of technology is ubiquitous. I think process and the comfort with the risk isn't quite there yet. There's still some lumpiness to it. And as Sam mentioned, Europe tends to kind of have some legacy processes and mindset that prevail and tend to slow down the deals or the execution of the deals. But in other countries, there's much more of an entrepreneurial bend, and things get done rather, perhaps even more quickly than here. It just the risk tolerance is higher in other markets. So it does, it varies globally, and that's been some of the key differences we've seen.
Right.
I see you nodding. If you
No,
want.
it's true.
Yeah, for us, a deal that we did in India was quite illuminating about how prevalent the legacy processes are, and opening bank accounts in India is the most fun job ever. I highly recommend you doing that, being international investors. And no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so I think that's true. We observed the same thing too, and every region seems to have its own quirks that we have to adapt. And for us, what it's meant for us is to also kind of figure out what we need to do in the deal process so we don't have to delay the closing of the transaction as well. That's been a big issue for us as we expand into geographies. Going down, want to understand, maybe for interest the audience here as well, want to read the room a little bit, since there are a lot of entrepreneurs here. How do you find deals that are outside of the US? Inside the US, the deal machine is very, very well oiled. People know you go to YC, you go to some startup foundry, and you get found. How about internationally? Are there any quirks, any unique things that your funds do for sourcing deals internationally? Can we start with maybe Varsha?
Yeah, I think we invest where we do have business presence, so that helps us to get local knowledge of the country from people who are selling in the market, which helps a lot. So that tends to be a very strong deal flow input for us, and then we go regionally. So I think each region would have equivalents of your YCs or equivalents of the seed funds, etc. Some regions also have a very strong banker network, and so we found some countries, independent of the stage of the company, all the deals are banked, which is very unique, not really predominant here. So that's how we scan the deals in each market. So we have some local, both business as well as investment diligence, as well as either the seed funds or the banker networks in those countries.
And I would just say, being CVC, it's kind of nice sometimes because your brand's already established, so people know Samsung, right? They know Mercedes-Benz, they know Qualcomm, right? If you're just kind of a run-of-the-mill, not top-tier VCs, because there's like 10, 20 out there. If you're a run-of-the-mill VC, how do you get noticed? It's very hard, but corporate networks are very strong. And then other synergies that we have is we have BMW Startup Garage, we have innovation units within the corporation that are on the ground also looking at stuff, and they are good feeders for us too. So it's in some ways a blessing and a curse to be a CVC.
Yeah. I guess the question was more intended to give the audience a flavor of how they actually get to you guys, right? Obviously, there's some companies here who are interested in raising money, and just curious to see if there are any networks that you rely on. Obviously, the local startup type events are a big source of these events, but it sounds like YC type entities are still a very prevalent deal source, and employee networks are a big network source for us for deals. We have presence in all these countries as well. So is that a big source for you as well, Brendon? Or?
Yeah, it definitely, we have presence, we have local people for sure, and then we also rely on our entrepreneurs also. So once we invest in a country, we try to plumb our entrepreneur network for referrals and things like that. And then, anybody in the audience, you're free to contact me. My email address is pretty simple. It's bkim@samsungnext.com, at the risk of being deluged afterwards. But yeah, we're very open to cold outreach as well. Although I would advise, as most entrepreneurs already know, that a warm introduction is always better than a cold one. But certainly, we do respond to anything that comes in our mailbox.
So start trolling on LinkedIn to find out employees that work in each of these funds and reach out through them. That's a big source of deals for us at Applied, because it comes with the level of comfort and pre-vetting that's done by the employee before they refer it to us. So a lot of our deals come from employee referrals.
Okay.
Maybe I'll pause here. I don't want to put the audience completely to sleep. It's not bedtime yet. Are there any questions in the audience that anybody wants to ask? If not, I can go back to my prepared questions here as well. Okay, going down the list here, maybe start with the gentleman here. Just to repeat the question, yeah. How do our funds address the perception that taking money from a corporate venture capital firm leaks the value to the fund?
I mean, our standard policy is that of like any other investor. We have, I guess in our case, we have Korean walls within the investment team, and we don't share any of the materials outside of the investment team without explicit permission from the startup. So even if we're going to make an introduction, we try to make sure that if we pass on any materials that they're sanctioned by the portfolio companies. It's hard to get rid of that perception, honestly, and I think there was an article in Fortune or Forbes or something like that maybe last week about the Alexa fund and some bad experiences there. You know, but it's like any other investor that you speak to. I think you just have to form a level of trust with them and get to know them over a period of time. Do reference checks. You know, we, as much as we do diligence on entrepreneurs, I think it's smart for entrepreneurs to do diligence on us. We're certainly happy to give you references, happy to have you check us out to see, you know, you got to know how the investor is to work with, right? And that's any investor. It doesn't matter whether it's a CVC or not CVC. I think maybe that's a particular concern for corporate venture capital partners, but certainly you can find other concerns with financial investors too. So I think it's just really important to check out the firm that you're working with, and in particular the person that you're going to be dealing with as well.
There's no other responses that are different. Can we go to the next question? I'm sorry, there are a few other hands raised as well. Lady there. Are there any specific sectors and geographies we're bullish on? Well, we're here, so we're bullish on India. Handing to the other.
AI.
Nope.
Robotics is hot now, but I don't believe in humanoid robotics generally.
How about you, Abe?
AI, electrification, battery, robotics, I think I'm a bit more optimistic, in part because I think Gen AI is going to accelerate some roadmaps and timelines, but still far out.
Yeah, I think outside of the ones that these guys mentioned, you do have the old technologies like IoT. They're maturing, so you will see some businesses mature there in that sector. Enterprise outside of AI also still continues to be strong. You see AI everywhere in enterprise, and these are all enterprise, either data center or application stacks. We think they're still here to stay.
Hopefully that helps. There were some questions here. I don't want to keep ignoring the person. Sorry.
It's going to be a lot longer than we expected. Let's just say that. A lot of the car companies have realized the difficulties of actually deploying at scale autonomous driving. And so a lot of the efforts actually in the last few years has been away from investing further into autonomous driving. I mean, of course, we'll get to like level 2, level 3, but like level 4 and 5 are just kind of crazy out there. But electrification is really the core focus right now, and maybe Abe wants to speak about that too.
Sure. I think L5 will not happen in my lifetime. That is my belief, at least not at any meaningful scale. L4 we'll see on a rolling basis. It's always 3 to 5 years, so every 3 to 5 years, it's 3 to 5 years. So we'll wait. But it is electrification. How do we get scale deployments and make sure we get consumers to buy in? Because Silicon Valley is great. Everyone buys electric cars here, but that's not going to make the market. And so how do we think through that, both from the underlying technology in the vehicle, but also from the infrastructure perspective, making sure that there's enough, if you will, redundancies that people can go to multiple stations if they need to.
Okay. There was a question in the front here. Sorry, she's been raising her hand. Go ahead. Can I repeat the question just for the audience?
Yeah, please.
question was, how does Abe approach new geographies that they've not invested in before, right?
I think one of the benefits of being at in a CVC is you already have like a built-in presence in most markets, right? Mercedes has a built-in presence in major markets. So the white space isn't as big. But in those areas, I'm a big believer in your network, in your informal network, tapping in, whether it's to get an intro or validate an entrepreneur, and just making those inroads. It's a bit of desk research, it's a bit of kind of taking cold calls, and sometimes just flying there and kind of seeing what's around, what's real, what's not.
What's an area that we're interested in that has not panned out?
I will go quickly. I think we were excited about the ramp of robotics, for example, taken longer. Autonomous, so Qualcomm is a big supplier in the mobility space, including auto. That has taken longer in terms of the user experience. However, the L2 capability has come out faster than that. So I would say those two have taken longer in terms of ramp up than what we thought.
I mean, the area that was big for us was Web3, blockchain, NFTs, all that stuff. We were big investors in that area. But long term, we are still believers in blockchain. It turned out that NFTs wasn't the use case that we all imagined it might be. But blockchain, I think, still has a very bright future. We're very much committed to still investing in that space. I think the use case is still yet to be determined. I think we're leaning now towards maybe fintech and the merger of fintech or the overlap of fintech and blockchain as maybe the next big use case. But yeah, that was an area that we heavily invested in. I think the lesson learned for us was the same as the lesson that I think I've tried to learn for the past 25 years that I've been doing this, which is, don't believe the hype. But sometimes you can't help but fall into it. And but there's learnings that happen in those hype cycles. So it's not for nothing. Technologies do advance, and so without those hype cycles, you wouldn't have the advances in the technologies that we have today. You have to have those hype cycles, and you have to live through them and learn from them so that you can take advantage of the next cycle and the next cycle after that.
Maybe last question, I'm sorry. There's opportunity to talk after the panel as well. So maybe last question. This gentleman here at the back has been, not you, sorry, the one behind you, sorry.
Thank you so much. I want to ask your company, your investment thesis. I know you are operator, working on material, what do you see about semicon and AI?
Wow, okay. I was not prepared for that. Well, obviously we've been in a very favorable cycle for the last several years, but I've been through many ups and downs, so I'm waiting for the first shoe to drop. Hasn't happened after the COVID thing happened, but it sounds like the Gen AI use case is driving a lot of manufacturing of semiconductors, and there does not seem to be an end to it. I do worry that if the actual monetization does not happen, there's going to come to a crashing halt, and we're all going to be left holding these big investments that we made. We don't know what to do with. But that's a problem for somebody else, hopefully, and may not happen in my lifetime here. But we are kind of bullish on other modes of computation as well. Quantum computing is an area that we've been looking at. We've not invested actively, but that can be quite disruptive or additive for the whole computing space. But that looks like it's going to be 10 years out. But maybe we'll be early to that space. So those are just two of the theses that we have. We have a whole other range of investments that we're working on with other colleagues. Happy to take questions outside the panel if you want. With that, I think we have to conclude the panel. Apparently, you all have to go back home or do something else that's more fun than this. So I will let you guys go. Really, thank you for being here. Thanks to the panelists for being here as well. Appreciate it. And we'll be on the side for questions. Thank you.